signs on the wall. In the corridor, she encountered several hurried bodyguards in black suits, communicating nervously through their earpieces, rushing toward the parking lot, almost colliding with her cleaning cart. No one glanced at her. To them, a cleaner was no different from the decorative potted plants by the roadside. At the entrance of the hot spring area, 2 bodyguards were still on duty, but their attention was clearly distracted by suspicious packages and vehicles coming through the earpieces, occasionally glancing toward the depths of the corridor and outside. She pushed her cart closer and awkwardly lifted the employee badge hanging around her neck. The bodyguards only took a quick glance at the photo and the logistics department label, then impatiently waved her in. She passed through smoothly. Inside the hot spring area, a faint sulfur smell lingered, and it was unusually quiet. She pushed the cart straight to the innermost part, a secluded corridor leading to only a few top private hot spring suites. She stopped outside the sandalwood door marked Moonview Bath. The door was slightly ajar. Inside, the sound of splashing water came through, along with a middle-aged man humming a tune off key. She stopped the cleaning cart, naturally bending down to reach into a hidden compartment at the bottom of the cart. Her hand touched something cold and metallic. She retrieved a Walther P99 handgun equipped with a cylindrical silencer, feeling its weight in her palm. She chambered around, her movements gentle and steady, producing no sound of metal clashing. Then, she straightened up, gently pushing open the heavy sandalwood door with her gloved hand. Warm steam rushed at her, mixed with a stronger sulfur scent. In the swirling mist, a slightly plump middle-aged man faced away from the door. His body submerged in the milky hot spring water, only his head and part of his shoulders visible, eyes closed, lazily humming a tune, completely defenseless. Hearing the door open, he expressed mild displeasure without turning around, lazily saying with the impatience typical of someone in power, "Didn't I say? No extra services needed, just go out, okay?" Before he finished speaking, Tongu Nua had already raised her arm. Her gaze pierced through the thin mist, locking onto the vulnerable spot where the back of his neck connected to his spine. Without hesitation, without a tremble, she pulled the trigger. The bullet left the barrel, spinning through the air, burying itself into the junction of the spinal cord and medulla oblongata. The humming ceased abruptly. The man's body stiffened suddenly, slowly tilting and sliding into the warm spring water. He didn't even have time to utter a complete cry of pain. One shot, a guaranteed kill. Blood, initially a dark red streak, soon gushed out, rapidly spreading in the milky spring water. Tongu Nua quickly stepped back 2 paces and closed the door. She pushed the cleaning cart towards a room marked as an equipment storage area next door. The door was slightly ajar. She pushed the cart inside. The room was dimly lit, and a middle-aged man dressed in a dark blue maintenance uniform and wearing a cap was already waiting, facing a small monitor screen. Upon seeing Tongu Nua enter, he immediately turned off the screen and gave her a slight nod. No words were needed. He naturally took hold of the cleaning cart's handle while Tongu Nua swiftly removed her disguise and placed it, along with her handgun, into the cart. Then, he pushed the cart, which was about to be disposed of, out the door, turning towards another direction in the corridor that led to the freight elevator and a prepared, unlicensed old truck in the backyard. The handover was complete. Tongu Nua took a bottle of portable mouthwash from her small bag, quickly rinsed her mouth to eliminate any lingering sulfur smell, and wiped her face and hands with a wet wipe. In the mirror, the cool and beautiful professional chess player Tongu Nua had returned. Just as she was about to leave through another exit of the equipment room, the door suddenly creaked open, pushed from the outside. A little girl, looking around 12 or 13 years old and dressed in a cute pink bathrobe, peeked in. She was holding a melting chocolate ice cream cone, her face beaming with pure curiosity, her big eyes darting around. Zangyuki, the genius girl who made waves in the chess world by entering the ranks at the age of 10, a future star with high expectations, had come along as a special observer. She blinked her clear big eyes, first spotting Tongu Nua, her small face lighting up with surprise. "Sister Tongu, aren't you in a match? Why are you in this dark room?" Boom. Tongu Nua's pupils constricted violently in that instant. It felt as if all the blood in her body had frozen, only to surge back to her head in the next moment. Sure enough, that damned variable, the unpredictable factor capable of destroying all carefully laid plans, had appeared in the most brutal way. No amount of meticulous calculation could account for a 12-year-old genius girl's totally random act of exploration driven by curiosity. In the corridor outside, the middle-aged man who had just left, disguised as a maintenance worker, seemed to have heard the commotion. He instantly turned back, silently appearing in the shadows at the doorway. Upon seeing the scene inside, his expression turned icy. His gaze fixed intently on Tongu Nua, then swept over the innocent little girl. His lips pressed into a cold straight line. The meaning in his eyes was clear, cruel, and undeniable. Eliminate the witness. Immediately. The organization's security was paramount above all else. Chapter 131. The battlefield of chess players is only on the chessboard. Zangyuki remained blissfully unaware of the danger so close at hand. She took a lick of her dripping ice cream and continued to curiously ask in a soft voice, "Sister Tongu, what are you doing here?" The little girl's eyes reflected nothing but innocent confusion. Tongu Nua looked at the girl in front of her, looking into those clear, bottomless eyes, like the purest obsidian, watching the ice cream cone in her hand, melting and dripping brown syrup, and the careful way she held it, observing the adorable little bunny pattern embroidered on her bathrobe, swaying gently with her movements. "Teacher," she silently screamed in her mind, almost in despair, her voice trembling with an intensity she herself hadn't realized. "What should I do? To kill? Or not to kill?" The phantom of Su Yunzu beside her fluctuated violently, as if also bearing immense pressure. He looked at the innocent little girl, then at the tense Tongu Nua. In the end, he closed his eyes and said sadly, "Anua, I can't help you with this question. You must choose for yourself. Choose for yourself. Tongu Nua's teeth clenched tightly. 3 seconds. It felt as long as a century. Outside the door, the middle-aged man's hand was firmly gripping the handle of the dagger, muscles tensed, ready to strike. His gaze grew colder and more urgent. Time. Every second increased the risk of exposure. Zhang Yiqi seemed to finally sense an unusual atmosphere. She blinked and looked at Tongu Nua's unusually pale face and tightly pressed lips, softly asking, Sister Tongu, are you feeling unwell? Just that one sentence, filled with a child's concern, pierced through a critical point like a fine needle. Finally, Tongu Nua's clenched jaw relaxed. She exhaled a long, silent breath of suppressed air. Then, she crouched down and gently stroked the little girl's head adorned with a bunny hairpin. Little Chi. Her voice was a bit hoarse, but she tried to keep it calm. Sister was just a bit tired. My head is dizzy. The competition is too tense. So I snuck out to find a place with no one around to cool off, splash some cold water, and wake myself up. She paused, looking into the little girl's eyes, her tone carrying a hint of shy embarrassment. This is Sister's little secret, okay? She leaned in a bit closer, lowering her voice as if sharing a secret. If the judges and teacher in no way knew I ran out to slack off in the middle of the competition, it would be very embarrassing. Zhang Yiqi's big eyes blinked in realization, her little face immediately revealing an expression of understanding. I've also had moments when I didn't want to practice chess and snuck snacks. She nodded vigorously, covering her mouth with her small hand, and said earnestly and softly, I understand. Sister, don't worry. I promise. This is our secret. I will never tell anyone. Let us make a pinky promise. Saying this, she extended her little finger, slightly sticky with ice cream. Tongu Nua looked at her serious yet adorable expression, and the tightly wound string in her heart seemed to finally loosen a little. She extended her pinky and gently hooked it with the little finger. Okay, pinky promise. Little Chi is really good. She stood up and gently patted the little girl's head again. It's time to go back. The ice cream is about to melt. And don't play outside for too long. Be careful not to catch a cold. Got it. Sister Tongu must hurry back to the competition. Good luck. Nakamiya Chi happily waved her little fist, took another lick of her ice cream, and skipped away. Tongu Nua slowly and stiffly turned back. Outside the door, a middle-aged man was still standing there, his hand resting on the handle of a knife. He looked deeply at Tongu Nua, his gaze filled with complex emotions. There was dissatisfaction, anger, and even a hint of relief. In the end, he said nothing. Then he turned and completely disappeared into the shadows. Tongu Nua stood in place for a few more seconds, listening to her heart gradually return from a frantic state to a heavy and slow beat. She took one last glance in the direction the little girl had left, then turned and exited through another door in the equipment room. She returned to the competition room. Calm and collected, she pushed open the heavy soundproof door and walked back to her seat. Sitting down at the chess table, she picked up a smooth piece and placed it down. Her posture was steady, her gaze focused, as if her mind had never left the small chessboard. In less than 10 minutes, to the spectators and her opponent, it seemed like she had just taken a slightly longer trip to the restroom, perhaps tidying her appearance. With her face appearing more refreshed than when she left, there was nothing unusual. The game continued to progress smoothly after a brief pause. An hour later, outside the window, in the distance, the sound of sirens started faintly, like a hallucination. The sound grew closer, more numerous, more intense, and increasingly piercing. Inside the competition room, everyone clearly sensed something was off. Even the sound of pieces being placed felt out of place. Suddenly, the phone at the judges' table rang. The chief referee picked up the receiver, listened for a moment, and his expression changed drastically. His hand holding the microphone even trembled slightly. He put down the receiver, took several deep breaths to steady himself, and quickly walked into the competition area, his face unusually serious. I am very, very sorry. His voice was dry, struggling to maintain composure, but the trembling tone betrayed him. A very serious incident has occurred at the villa outside. Someone has been killed. A large number of detectives from the police department have arrived, and the scene needs to be sealed off for a thorough investigation. He glanced at the two players at the chessboard, seemingly isolated from the world. Should the competition be paused? The investigation may take some time, and we might need your cooperation for questioning. In no way Shoyuta, a ninth dan player, furrowed his brow. He glanced at the distant flashing red and blue lights outside, then at the unresolved situation on the chessboard, finally letting his gaze fall on his opponent. Tongu Nua slowly lifted her head. There was no panic, no curiosity on her face, only a near-cold calmness. She looked at the chief referee and in no way Shoyuta. August 6th, Showa 20. The final game of the Heninbo match between my senior Hashimoto Yutaro and senior Iwamoto Karu took place in the outskirts of Hiroshima. On that day, at 8:15 a.m., an atomic bomb exploded just a few kilometers from the competition room. Her gaze swept across the shocked faces of everyone present. Her voice was not loud, but it carried a firm strength. Bright light, shock waves, trembling buildings, shattering glass, dust filling the air. The game room was damaged, and the recorder was injured. But the two seniors, she paused slightly, her eyes sharp. They did not stop. They cleared the chessboard, brushed off the dust, and continued their game until the end. Because the battlefield of a chess player is only on the board. Outside the board, the world may be in chaos, blood may flow like rivers. But what does that have to do with the game? As her words fell, a profound silence enveloped the game room, akin to death. Everyone seemed to be under a spell, unable to believe their eyes as they looked at this 17-year-old girl. They observed her youthful yet upright posture, as if it bore the spirit of millennia of chess masters, and her stubborn gaze. They finally understood why this girl could reach such a height just a year after entering the ranks. The serious and confused expression on the face of the ninth dan player, Shinjo Shota, gradually faded away. In its place was a mixture of shock and respect. He slowly and solemnly nodded. His voice was deep and powerful. Kitagami, you are right. Nothing can interrupt the chess player's game. Not even the emperor. Referee, please continue. The referee took a deep breath, looked around, and his expression became resolute. I understand. Everyone, please remain silent. The match continues. Chapter 132. After the catastrophe at 6 o'clock that afternoon, the game was officially sealed. The match was paused, and the two players returned to their respective resting rooms. Meanwhile, the outside world had already turned upside down. News spread like a shockwave. Sweeping across the Neon District and even the globe, a prominent political figure, Congressman Tara Shin, was assassinated at the Hanasui Pavilion Hot Spring Resort in Yanaga City, Tottori Prefecture. The assailant, disguised as a hotel cleaner, executed the act with professional precision, delivering a fatal blow before fleeing the scene in a pre-prepared truck, and is currently at large. The police have cordoned off the entire resort and surrounding roads, establishing numerous checkpoints, and conducting a thorough manhunt. The Hanasui Pavilion Hot Spring Resort was surrounded by police cars, with officers, plainclothes detectives, and forensic personnel bustling about. As one of the chess players coincidentally competing in this location and situated in the core area, Kitagami, known naturally, could not avoid routine questioning by the police. The inquiry was arranged in a small makeshift meeting room on the second floor. The questioning officer was a police inspector named Yasuda, around 50 years old, with graying hair but sharp eyes like an eagle. His face bore little expression, only the calm and scrutiny forged by years and cases. The questions were standard yet detailed. Kitagami, between 1 and 3 in the afternoon, where exactly were you? During the match, did you hear or notice any unusual sounds or movements? Do you know Congressman Tara? Had you had any form of contact or interaction with him prior to this? What was the approximate time you left the game room to go to the restroom? How long were you gone? Did you encounter any suspicious individuals or incidents on your way? Tong Guanua's response was calm and organized, perfectly aligning with the image she projected of an immersed chess player, focused and innocent, a genius girl who was oblivious to the world. Her timeline had a complete and impeccable alibi. After all, she spent most of her time in the game room, and the only time she left to use the restroom was witnessed by many. Officer Yasuda's keen eyes, which had seen through countless lies, fixed on her for a full 10 minutes, trying to find flaws in every subtle change of her expression, her breathing rhythm, and her unconscious hand movements. However, all he saw was the extraordinary calm of a top player, along with a hint of age-appropriate nervousness and restraint when faced with a murder case and police questioning. Finally, Officer Yasuda exhaled quietly, signed the record, and routinely nodded at her. Thank you for your cooperation, Tong Guanua. You may leave now. If you remember any details, please feel free to contact us. There was no suspicion, not a trace of targeted doubt. After all, in everyone's perception, the gap between a 17-year-old national idol beauty on the verge of conquering the chess world and a seasoned, cold-blooded killer disguised as a cleaner was deeper than the Mariana Trench, with no logical or imaginative connection point whatsoever. As she exited the temporary interrogation room, Tong Guanua brushed past the officer in the hallway. The old policeman seemed to pause slightly, but ultimately said nothing, continuing instead to frown and discuss the pursuit direction of the homeless murderer with his subordinates. Tong Guanua walked steadily back to her room, avoiding eye contact. She closed the door and locked it. She walked to the small coffee table, sat down, picked up the cold teapot, and poured herself a cup of barley tea that had long gone cold. Her hand reached for the teacup, just before her fingertips touched the cup's surface. They trembled ever so slightly, almost imperceptibly. She grasped the cup, the cold sensation transmitting through her palm. Teacher, she spoke to the air, her voice low, tinged with the breathlessness of someone who had survived a crisis and a tremor that was hard to suppress. I'm sorry, I still can't do it. She was naturally referring to Zhong Yiqi. Su Yunzhou continuously clicked the reward button. In an instant, a gentle yet firm warmth quietly flowed into Tong Guanua's body, enveloping her tense nerves and slightly cold hands and feet. At the same time, his voice resonated in her consciousness, even more gently than ever before. This is my Arno. He paused, and his tone carried a sense of relief and pride. As if it were expected, always having your own persistence and bottom line. Some lines, once crossed, can never be returned to. However, her voice remained calm, though it began to reveal a hint of deep-seated worry. What if Xiaoqi accidentally slips up when questioned by the police? Even just mentioning that she saw Sister Tonghua in a strange place? She paused, as if assessing the worst-case scenario. That officer looks very experienced. He would definitely suspect me following that lead. Time, place, and motive may seem to lack direct evidence, but once the seed of suspicion is sown, the investigation can become endless. She raised her eyes, and for the first time, a clear, almost fragile panic showed on her face in front of Su Yunzhou. I'm not afraid of being exposed, teacher. I'm afraid that if I'm really accused and my freedom is restricted, or worse, what if I can't complete the task you entrusted to me? This was what terrified her more deeply than death or capture. Su Yunzhou fell silent for a moment. He could sense Su Yunou's unease and guilt at that moment. She wasn't regretting letting an innocent child go. She was deeply remorseful that she might not be able to reach that distant future appointment because of it. He clicked the reward button once again. A warm energy continued to flow, trying to dispel the chill in her heart. Then, his voice became steadier and more assured. Silianoa, I wouldn't need you to save by going against your conscience and harming the innocent. He lightened his tone a bit, trying to alleviate her heaviness. Don't worry. Nothing will happen, because I can see the future. This statement, like a calming anchor, made Tongu Nua's tense shoulders finally relax slightly. That night, Tongu Nua lay in the soft bedding of the guest room, the scent of cedarwood for sleep lingering at the tip of her nose. However, her sleep was extremely shallow. Any slight movement outside could wake her instantly. Her mind kept flashing back to the innocent face of Zhong Ichi in the equipment room and the cold, decisive look of her companion at the door. She lay in the dark with her eyes open, listening to her unsteady breathing until the first light of dawn appeared outside the window. However, the night passed without incident. The anticipated urgent knocking by the police in the middle of the night for a second summons did not occur. Although the villa was still sealed off by the police and the atmosphere was tense, the inquiries directed at the chess academy staff were limited to very routine confirmations of their schedules around the time of the incident. When the old police chief routinely asked about the young chess player Zhong Ichi, the little girl simply held a cup of hot milk, blinking her still sleepy big eyes, and shook her head in confusion. I didn't see any strange people. Her voice was soft and slightly nasal from just waking, and she tilted her head, trying hard to recall, adding, I was with teacher Ijaku all afternoon, watching him show off. Then I got a bit sleepy, and teacher Ijaku took me to the lounge to sleep, and then I heard a lot of noise outside. Her narration was natural and simple, aligning with the image of a playful and easily tired child. As for whether she truly kept the promise regarding the secret, or if her innocent little mind simply did not connect the appearance of her sister Tongu in a strange place with the occurrence of a terrible murder, or perhaps it was Ijaku Yoshitaka. Upon noticing something or simply to soothe the frightened child, he said something to her that guided her memory. In any case, the crisis seemed to have quietly passed without incident. The next day, the competition continued. Ultimately, Tongu Nua secured another victory with a significant lead of 8.5 points. Thus, this highly anticipated 7-game match ended with a shocking score of 3 o'clock. Tongu Nua, with an overwhelming and despair-inducing absolute advantage, pushed the former champion, the 9th Dan Shinobu Masato, to the edge of an insurmountable cliff. Only one final step remained to claim the title of Go Sage, the highest honor in Japanese Go. The 4th game, which might also be the last, was scheduled to be held in Obihiro, Hokkaido, from February 17th to 18th, 2017. Almost no one held any expectations for Shinobu Masato's defense. In the media editorial department, special reports on the emergence of the new era queen and the 18-year-old genius crowning as Go Sage were already prepared, ready to sweep across all pages at the moment of the final move. Chapter 133. No wonder you all like her. As the explosive news of the assassination of political figure Musashi Najin continued to develop, the upcoming game in Hokkaido was shrouded in a layer of supernatural, mysterious, and even fateful colors by the media and public opinion. Headlines like blood-soaked Go Sage battle, cursed match, and the Grim Reaper accompanies the genius girl flooded the news outlets. In television talk shows, various experts discussed and attempted to interpret this coincidence from metaphysical, psychological, and even social symbolic perspectives. There were even some netizens, either enjoying the spectacle or dissatisfied with Musashi Najin's political views. Half jokingly and half seriously commented on social media, could it be that heaven is using Musashi Na's blood to pave the way for our Nua-sama's ascension to Go Sage? Although this statement might seem disrespectful, Musashi Na's death had skyrocketed the heat of the Go Sage battle. Nua-sama, this is fate. Laughs. The blood of the old era watering the throne of the new era? This script is just too thrilling. For the vast majority of ordinary people, the assassination of a political figure like Musashi Najin, while shocking, was also somewhat imaginable. Political struggles and conflicts of interest, who can say for certain? The lives and deaths of high-ranking individuals are ultimately separated by a distant layer from the everyday lives of the common people. After the initial shock, curiosity and gossip followed. After returning to Edo, Su Nua entered a period of heightened caution and seclusion, with the aftermath of the Musashi Na incident still unresolved. The police had identified the main suspect as a homeless scapegoat, but large-scale investigations and screenings were ongoing to prevent any possible oversights or accidental exposures. She cut off all contact with the New Moon Group except for emergency communications in the short term. Days passed quickly in a rhythm that appeared orderly on the surface but was tense inside. During the day, she immersed herself in the world of Go, occasionally accepting brief media interviews that she could not refuse. At night, she returned to her apartment, continuing her unwavering physical training and improving her online skills. Soon, the calendar turned its last page. The year 2017 had arrived. At the same midnight as last year, the main lights in the apartment were off. Only a few ambient lights cast a soft glow. Su Nua still stood alone in front of the floor-to-ceiling glass window, looking down at the starry river formed by countless lights below. Teacher, she gazed at the blurred reflection of Su Yunju on the glass, softly speaking. I was standing here at this time last year. I asked you, would you dislike me like this? Memories surged. The anxiety and self-doubt from last year, along with the faint yet solid comfort she felt after receiving an affirmative answer, seemed to have happened just yesterday. Su Yunju wore a gentle smile. He didn't speak immediately, but gently moved the mouse and clicked the warm green reward button. I still give the same answer, never. Receiving this expected yet eternally reassuring answer, Su Nua seemed to exhale lightly. She took a small step forward, closer to the cold glass window. Then, she slightly lifted her toes, raised her face, and closed her eyes. She gently pressed her warm lips against the glass where Su Yunju's reflection was, at about the height of her lips. It was a kiss through a layer of cold medium, yet it was incredibly sincere. Teacher, her voice pressed against the glass, sounding somewhat muffled but filled with complete reliance and satisfaction. Thank you for spending another new year with me. Su Yunju steadied himself and brought up Su Nua's current attributes panel. Overall charm value, 87,100. Only 3 points remain to reach the ultimate goal of 90 points. Although the assassination of Wu Gongjin shocked the world and sparked countless speculations, only a few knew that the executor behind it was this girl before him. Therefore, Her influence score did not significantly increase due to this incident. Perhaps it would only end Su Nua's quest when the title of chess sage was finally crowned. Realizing this, Su Yunju contemplated, not just New Year, but this year's Spring Festival, Valentine's Day, and your birthday. I can spend them all with you. Su Nua remained silent for a few seconds. The lights outside flickered in her eyes, and then, her voice was soft. So light it seemed it could drift away in the air. Is it time to part? She paused and asked the question that had long been lodged in her heart, but she dared not think deeply about. Do we have to wait until 8 years later? In 2025, to truly meet? Su Yunju also fell silent for a moment. Perhaps. That was all he could answer. Su Nua replied softly, not probing further, not complaining, not even showing a hint of disappointment. She seemed to have long been accustomed to burying her expectations deep enough to deceive even herself. She turned around, and a clear smile suddenly blossomed on her face. Then, teacher, this year, let's properly spend our last Valentine's Day together. Soon, the Spring Festival arrived. The apartment was filled with the warm aroma of food. Su Yunjua transformed once again into a culinary master, preparing several exquisite dishes from Bazhou. The spicy chicken cubes were brilliantly red and tempting, while the boiled pork slices floated under a fragrant layer of chili and peppercorns. The mapo tofu was steaming and quivering, and there was a plate of stir-fried seasonal vegetables to cleanse the palate. On the dining table, 2 sets of bowls and chopsticks were laid out. Although Su Yunjua couldn't reach them, Su Nua stubbornly served him food and poured wine, carefully placing the best parts of each dish into the empty bowl across from her. The wine glass was filled with clear sake. Teacher, she raised her glass towards the air, her voice filled with joy. Happy New Year's Eve. At first, Su Yunjua didn't pay much attention, thinking the girl was being overly particular. But as he looked at the bowl full of dishes and the filled glass, combined with the almost reverent atmosphere in the quiet room, he increasingly felt an eerie sense of familiarity in this process. Offering food, setting the table, pouring wine, making wishes, wasn't this a form of worship? The only difference was the absence of photos, replaced by holographic projections. He couldn't help but laugh and feel soft-hearted at the same time. This girl was celebrating the festival with him in the most solemn way she could think of. This time, she declined all invitations from her seniors and peers at the chess academy to celebrate New Year's Eve together. She chose to return alone to this apartment, to keep vigil with the presence only she could perceive. After dinner, everything was tidied up. Su Nua curled up on the soft sofa with a large bag of potato chips, while Su Yunjua brought out the chicken popcorn he had prepared earlier. The two sat side by side on the sofa, one ethereal and the other solid, watching the Spring Festival gala from their distant homeland via live stream. When a dance segment ended and the host announced the next program, Su Yunjua felt an inexplicable jolt in his heart. Sure enough, the screen displayed the now famous figure of Song Jieru. She stood in the center of the dazzling stage, wearing a gorgeous gown that blended modern design with classical elements. Her skin radiant under the spotlight. Su Yunjua glanced nervously at Su Nua beside him, sensing that this little jealous one might explode. Given how fiercely she had glared at Song Jieru last year on the streets of Kyoto, it was hard to imagine her reaction to seeing Song Jieru shining in such a grand setting, singing a heartfelt song. Wouldn't this little jealous one burst into fireworks? Who knows what kind of upgraded life and death question might pop up, like if both she and I fell into a black hole, who would you save first? However, unexpectedly, Su Nua just sat quietly, her gaze focused on the television screen, listening intently to the entire song without any displeasure on her face. In fact, when the camera zoomed in on Song Jieru's face, capturing a moment of her deep gaze, Su Nua subtly nodded, as if acknowledging something in her heart. After the program ended and the ads began, the living room fell into a moment of quiet. Teacher, Su Nua finally spoke softly, her tone unusually calm. Song Jieru sings really well. She paused and added, her voice still steady, and she's really good looking. She paused again, this time for a bit longer. As if talking to herself, no wonder you all like her. You all. Chapter 134, do I owe you some money? You all. Oh, I mean, Song Jieru has so many fans, right? Su Yunjo felt a bit uneasy, chuckled awkwardly, and tried to divert the topic. Our little Nua is not bad either. He quickly shifted the conversation, his tone filled with praise. Look at you, you've grown so much taller this year, and your temperament has improved too. This was indeed true. Over the past year, through almost self-torturous discipline and the optimization plan provided by a top nutrition team borrowed from Lin Ruoxuan, Su Nua's transformation was astonishing. Her height had increased from 158 centimeters to 165 centimeters, and her figure had transitioned from being thin and frail to becoming well-proportioned and upright, exuding a vibrant vitality. Surprisingly, Su Nua did not explode or say anything sarcastic. Instead, she smiled, with a complex and indescribable expression in her smile. Teacher, it's quite a coincidence this year. She suddenly said, her tone deliberately casual, my birthday is on the same day as Valentine's Day. This year's lunar birthday coincidentally fell on the Gregorian Valentine's Day. Su Yunjo frowned. With such a coincidental date, he couldn't do nothing. Besides, last year's Valentine's Day, Su Nua had given herself the first Valentine's gift of her life. So he naturally had to return the favor. But what could he do? Gift? How to give? Through a game? But this lousy game doesn't have that feature. Sweet talk? That seemed too empty. He pondered deeply. Wait, how did I forget about them? A thought flashed through his mind like lightning. He decisively paused the game, withdrew his consciousness from Su Nua's apartment in 2017, and returned to his hotel room by West Lake in 2025, where the morning light was just breaking. Picking up his phone nearby, his fingers quickly swiped across the screen, scanning the contacts. It wouldn't be appropriate to ask Lin Ruoxuan or Song Jieru. As for Shin Mingwei, she was too young in 2017. Got it. his gaze fixed on a contact he had just added yesterday, noted as Morgan Su Sini from Hong Kong Island, the great-granddaughter of the elderly Wu Xiaoyun. In terms of bloodline and family rank, she could be considered a distant relative, possibly a cousin. The atmosphere was quite harmonious when they met yesterday, and the other party was respectful and appropriate. He clicked on the profile, carefully considered his wording, and sent a message. Miss Su, or should I call you cousin? Are you up? It was 9 in the morning. Soon, the other party replied, her tone respectful. Sir. Do you have any instructions? Su Yunzhou thought for a moment and decided to be straightforward. Think carefully. Do I owe you some money? This sentence seemed out of the blue, clearly leaving Su Sini on the other end of the screen confused. No, sir. Didn't we just formally meet for the first time yesterday? How could there be a question of owing money? Su Yunzhou laughed heartily, his fingers flying over the keyboard. Think again. On New Year's Eve in 2017. Did someone ask you to arrange something? A person claiming to be a friend of your great-grandmother reached out to help prepare a birthday and Valentine's gift? After sending the message, there was silence for a full minute on the other end. Then the flood of messages began. It turned out that person was you. I was puzzled at the time, suddenly receiving a mysterious text from a completely unfamiliar number, and it was written in French. The sender claimed to have deep ties to our family and identified themselves as you. They wanted to celebrate a birthday and Valentine's Day for a young girl in neon lights, and asked me to plan a special gift, mentioning they would reimburse me later. When I received the text, I was confused, but since the person knew about the connection between my great-grandmother and you, it didn't seem like a mere prank. So, I consulted my great-grandmother. After listening, she was silent for a long time, then smiled and said it was interesting, asking me to proceed as the sender suggested. I really went ahead, paid for everything, and sent the details about the gift and arrangements back to that number. But later, I could no longer contact that person. The number was deactivated. Over time, other family members learned about this and said I must have encountered a telecom scam. After all, while not many know about the family's connection to you, it's not a complete secret, and I might have been exploited by someone with ulterior motives. The more I thought about it, the more it seemed true. I thought to myself, how could I, Su Sini, who is clever and resourceful, be embarrassed by such an international scam? I was quite upset for a while. I never expected it was actually true. The mysterious person who texted me was really you? I wasn't scammed after all. Through the screen, Su Yunzhou could clearly feel her excitement in every word. He suppressed a smile and continued to play the role of filling in the historical gaps, responding, yes, that was indeed me. The situation back then was special. I couldn't reveal myself directly, so I used some unconventional means to contact you, which must have confused you. I apologize for that. So, how much did you pay for this back then? Send me your account details, and I will transfer you the principal plus interest. If I said I would pay you back, I must do so. Su Sini seemed a bit stunned from the shock. About 60 or 70,000, I guess. But she quickly added, with a casual tone mixed with a hint of resentment. But never mind. At that time, when my great-grandmother heard there might be news from you, she was very happy and reimbursed me directly. Later, when she heard there was no follow-up and couldn't get in touch, she just laughed a few times and said you were always elusive, so it's something to get used to. So actually, I didn't lose anything. I just carried the suspicion of being scammed for several years. Su Yunzhou thought for a moment but insisted, brothers should settle accounts clearly. Besides, as your older brother, how could I let my sister pay and not get reimbursed? Send me your account details. Soon, Su Sini sent a bank account information from a certain region. Su Yunzhou quickly and decisively transferred 100,000 as a compensation and interest. After finishing the important business, Su Yunzhou suddenly remembered a crucial detail. What was the phone number you used to receive messages back then? He thought that once he took control of the promised body, he would send a message to that number, completing the causal loop that spanned 8 years. Su Sini provided a series of domestic phone numbers and explained, this number was used when I hadn't gone abroad for studies yet, just like you, studying at a university here, using a domestic phone number. She then asked, by the way, why do you want to know this? Su Yunzhou chuckled, just feeling a bit nostalgic. However, the next message from Su Sini made his previously relaxed expression tense up again. By the way, I'm actually not your cousin. Su Yunzhou's heart skipped a beat. What? Was he really going to fulfill that ridiculous marriage contract from Wu Lao? Before he could respond, Su Sini's next message popped up. Yesterday, I carefully checked the family tree with your parents, and it turns out I should call them older cousin and older cousin wife. She paused, seemingly trying to suppress a laugh. So, according to the family hierarchy, I should be your aunt. Su Yunzhou stared at the phone screen, momentarily speechless, his expression quite entertaining. What the heck? Aunt, this is ridiculous. Just yesterday, I was politely calling her Miss Su, thinking she was a distant cousin, and now she's an aunt? Well, if she's an aunt, then so be it. Su Yunzhou thought for a moment and inexplicably felt relieved. It was much better than suddenly having an unexpected fiancé. His current emotional connections were already complicated enough. But wait, something felt off. In a certain well-known martial arts story, didn't the hero initially call his future wife aunt? This thought made Su Yunzhou's mouth twitch. He chuckled a few times, deciding not to delve deeper into this somewhat dangerous analogy. He closed the chat window with Su Sini and then opened a translation app to translate the message he wanted to send to 2017 Su Sini into French. This was naturally to ensure Su Nuo couldn't understand it. Otherwise, there would be no surprise. He flexed his fingers and clicked, continue game. Next came the moment to witness a miracle. Chapter 135. Another Valentine's Day with the preparations complete, Su Yunzhou re-entered the game. Only a moment had passed in the game. Nuo, Su Yunzhou began, his voice laced with playful anticipation and a hint of mischief. Let me take over you for a moment? Su Nuo was a bit puzzled, not understanding what the teacher suddenly wanted to control her body for. However, she had complete trust in Su Yunzhou and simply responded obediently. Oh, okay. She relaxed and temporarily handed over control of her body. Soon, Su Yunju's consciousness took over Su Nua's body. He guided her to the computer, powered it on.